All right, folks, back here in the Tour de France, stage 12. Going to work on one of the breakaway painting. Um, so for those who haven't been following, I am painting the Tour de France. I've started painting the Tour live or close to live every day back in 2012. I was actually sitting and watching the Tour, and it's on during the day, of course, because it's a early afternoon, evening broadcast in France. So it's a day long watching here in the United States. But so I was watching the Tour, and just kind of it goes against my grain to sit and watch TV during the day, even though my quote unquote day job is an evening job. Still, it just is, I don't know, sinful is too strong of a word, but just not what you do watching TV during the day. Even during the pandemic, lockdowns, I've been keeping myself very busy in the studio, and now, of course, with painting the Tour de France, that's keeping me very busy as well. So, anyway, so I've been painting it every day, and so we are into stage 12. This year, I'm going to have a little trouble with the end of the race because I'm excited to say that I will be donating a kidney so that my wife will be receiving a kidney, and that's going to happen on the 16th. So, depending on my in-hospital recovery, I will perhaps be painting in the hospital room as I recover before heading home, and then finishing up the tour. So it may get a little off live, but we're really excited about this, and it's exciting and as useful as painting the tour is, and this work is all for sale on my website at gregleach.com. Getting my wife a new kidney is infinitely more important, obviously. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to look at these paintings and support what I'm doing. Some of you have graciously, you're getting a piece of artwork out of it, but have kindly gone and bought artwork from my website at gregleach.com. And if you don't know how to spell it, GREIGLEACH.com. And you can see all of not only my Tour de France artwork, but some of the other artworks that you see here on YouTube, and of course a whole lot more artworks. So the way I do these is obviously first find the image that I think will be visually entertaining, tell the story of the race. I just got a really nice email about this patron who's been buying my work. Actually has been following these things since at least 2014, when he was one of those who backed my Tour de France book on Kickstarter back in 2014. But anyway, he said he now has a little game he plays with himself as he's watching the tour to try and guess which images I will choose to paint. And the compliment was that they're a perfect combination of the key moments of each stage, but also those special little intimate moments that we as cyclists recognize, appreciate, enjoy, and in some cases have experienced. I did race amateur way back, and I do mean way back. I was racing in the 70s. So what is that? I was racing almost 50 years ago, 45 years ago. So I do have some understanding of what these riders are doing, what they're going through. I understand a lot of the tactics involved. And it's a sport I love, so call this What Are You Saying? Wish I could remember what today's date was. I believe it's the 10th. So I lay in the ink work, I kind of find the image that I want, try to keep things graphically interesting, the composition. I mean, this is still, we're creating a work of art that should stand alone, independent of what it is depicting. You should be able to enjoy the painting for its own sake and not need to know the story of the racing. Certainly that's my goal. Because the painting is what will be hanging on your wall or wherever you choose to keep the painting. And while it will trigger a memory of what you watched, it is its own entity. So it's important that your image is visually captivating. And because my work, there are others who are painting the tour, and they maybe do one painting each day, and they're not doing quite what I'm doing, but who get a lot more detail and make people, their faces recognizable. And I of course have that skill, but I'm more interested in creating the narrative, creating something that is visually impactful. Not to say that those aren't, but that's just not my goal when I paint. So as you can see, I'm starting with the warm colors, the palest, the yellows, and then working my way through the palette towards the cool colors. This is to help keep the colors more pure, keep the brush cleaner. It requires less brush washings. And it's just sort of the way I've developed working over the years. Both with the watercolors, because of the translucency of the medium, you can't go back easily. So it's best to work this way, again, keeping your colors cleaner. Because what truly interests me, and part of what, not only do I love cycling, but I love painting the figure. I love the figure in motion, painting the figure in motion in particular, and I love color. So here I just realized I lost a little detail here because of this arm. There. So I got Evita back here, the cyclist from Movistar. He was getting a little lost back there. So just putting a little shadow in right now. So it's a little more reds in it, a little. So just to get a different color, to give a little more three-dimensional detail. So now we'll move into the blues. I see a mistake, but because I'm doing this the way I did, so I forgot to put the yellow and blue bands on these shorts. But because this is a pale color right here, I should be able to cover that enough to get what I want here. So for cyclists and people who follow the tour, I don't need to spell out, the name of the team written across here and that kind of thing. And again, not really my intention, not what I'm trying to do. But you can see this kit just as it is right now, kit being their racing uniform, and recognize that that is Israeli Startup Nation. I always enjoy the first race of the year. I usually paint the Tour Down Under. And when I was painting that this year, had no idea. So that was in late January. And at that point, there was this reported virus that nobody really knew anything about happening in China. Who knew we were going to where we are now, with even the tour being postponed by a month, 2 months. Yeah, 2 months. So that's just been very interesting. And of course, I've been furloughed since mid-March. So it's just been a very different year than any of us expected. Just see, it's all a little more. There we go. So now we've laid in the blues. I see some red I missed, so I'm going to go back and hit that. And you saw I just sort of cleaned my brush and patted it relatively dry. So the intensity of the color is a function of the water to pigment ratio. Obviously, the more water you have, the less intense the color. All right, so now we need a darker blue for the rest of these shorts back here. So I've got this ultramarine. So this is the French team, the Total Direct Energy, and so their kit is remnant of, or reminds me of, the French flag. There was a word I wanted there that was similar to remnant, but. And then Movistar has a almost black shorts, but there's a bit of blue in them. And then most teams wear black shorts. It's kind of a tradition. When I raced amateur, you could not wear anything but black shorts. And of course we were amateurs, so we also weren't allowed to wear any logos or anything like that. I mean, like if you showed up with a jersey that had its manufacturer's name fairly obvious, or your shorts even, they handed you a roll of masking tape and you had to cover up the names on your shorts. I had one friend who worked at a bike shop and had a little more money than the rest of us, and so he was always buying the snazzy new kit. And he showed up once with a pair of shorts that had the manufacturer's name very clearly. And he had to race the race with this big strap of tape around his leg. I don't think it really made any difference in his abilities for the day, but still. All right. So I want to go back in here and fix a few mistakes. So like I said, this knee right here, he's got some light blue. He's got this light blue band because he's part of Astana. right there, but because I used the flesh tone first, it wasn't a problem. Now what I should have done is done the flesh tones that I need to correct first. Before I did that, so building the flesh tone with yellow and orange, and then just a teeny bit of purple. And the purple being the complement of yellow, which sort of gives it, dulls that color down a little bit. Gives me the brownish color I want. All right, so those are the figures. Now with watercolors, white is the absence of pigment, because all of these are translucent. So if you want to create white, you simply leave the paper. There is a technique of laying down rubber cement. Like if you're painting water and you're doing a bigger painting, you want to, I know what that was. Oh, I see what I just did. Again, by starting with light, you can fix your mistakes. So I meant for the bright grass to be there. So you can lay like if you're painting rapids or something, you can lay in that, what will be the water churning and the splashing waves and such, and lay in your blues and then pick off the rubber cement, and that will leave the white behind. With these pieces, I don't do that, but instead just plan ahead, although clearly I've missed some plans here. So the whites, of course, become more apparent as you lay the other colors around them. So these whites are popping a lot more as I lay the dark green of the foliage back in behind them. And another big part of creating your work is have your brush follow the shapes. I don't know if you've noticed me, sort of the legs of the brush is a long drag. Right now I'm doing the foliage, and so I'm dabbing the color in, and that leaves the feeling of leaves. Leaves the feeling of leaves. And just darken that green some more to get the sense of the shadows back up underneath the foliage. And then we'll come back in with a bright again to catch the sunlight hitting the tops of the trees, right here along the tree line. While I wait for that to dry before I lay in the sky, I'm going to come back here and hit a little bit of tree trunk. All right. Now, something else I missed. So this is Luis Leon Sanchez. He rides for Astana, which is normally a pale blue jersey, but he is the Spanish champion. So he has a replica of the Spanish flag. Some teams don't do this good of a job letting the flag feature. So then I just put in some blues to create just a bit of the shadow. So all that's left now is the roadway. Which I tend to do. So this black that I create, so that's the deoxing purple. This is a hooker green. See it over there. Mix those two together. Go, oops, that's a little ratio wasn't right, so put a little more purple in it. Now, with the roadway, I add a bit of blue to that quote-unquote black. And I want this to be light gray. So see how there's a bunch of water and I'm just dragging it off. And again, having the brush stroke, trying to get the brush stroke to go this way so that it helps create the sense of the roadway, even though the shape, the implication would be to take the brush down. Now I have to move my finger so I can get that little corner. So that is today's painting. Hope you've learned a little bit about the tour and about bike racing, although I didn't talk too much about that, and about using watercolors to create work. So thanks for taking the time to look.